Nowadays, we name things without really considering if it offends someone, what its value is, or if it even means something. This specifically relates to one case involving the Redskins name and how the Native Americans seem offended by it. To stop offending this certain ethnic group, the Native Americans, we must look into how the sport team, the Rednecks, named after this group, hurts and offends them, and we must work together to try and remove these names from these sports teams, not just the Redskins, but also all in general. My first point is actually looking into how these names offend the Native Americans, and one example of why the Redskins offends them so much. Secondly, I want to express how Native Americans' rights are being not listened to and ignored because of a long battle that they had in court and being not really listened to and dismissed. And lastly, I also want to explain how if we name these sports differently, if we take these offensive names of ethnic groups, how greatly this is going to impact stereotypes as well as very negative opinions seen of these ethnic groups. First of all, I want to discuss how the Redskins are in such controversy about this name, Redskins, named after Native Americans. There was an article actually posted by Aaron Stanley from Fergus Falls Daily Journal named "Redskins Name Change Supporters Carry Weight," and this article was posted in 2013. It mainly focused on the story of a Minnesota congresswoman demanding that the Washington Redskins abandon their name because they exploit for profit a racial slur, as in the Redskins. She scolded owner Daniel Snyder and Commissioner Roger Goodell for attempting to justify this racial slur. And in maybe a retaliation of this, both of the men tried actually attaining Native Americans from their area and tried to make them support their team names, seeming like it was not really an important deal. And they apparently lured a Native American chief, into supporting them also. Later, it was found out that he really wasn't a chief. His nickname was simply a chief, and he was not even fully Native American. He was only 1/4 Native American. And so many of these Native groups that were already against it were even more baffled and more angered at them trying to cover up this whole idea of renaming their team from Redskins to another one for it being offensive. Second of all, I also want to discuss how this group of Native Americans that had already tried changing the Redskins name, tried to bring the 17-year court battle between them to the Supreme Court. But later on, the Supreme Court actually ignored them, and then they stated that it wasn't really an important issue that they would address because it really didn't matter. And so Native Americans felt like they weren't being listened to, and they felt that their rights were actually being ignored. And this comes from the Associated Press. This article was named "Native American Sports Mascots," and it was posted in 2013. And this leads to my last point, which is the rights of people, is if we change the name of these team sports, then this specific ethnic group, Native Americans, will feel like stereotypes are going to be reduced, as well as the portrayal of them is going to be a more positive one rather than a negative one. And in an article named by 18DS named "The Dark Side of Sports Symbols," which was published in 2001, states that despite the apparent tribality, the symbols that surround these sports teams are important because they also dictate the social dominance in just in society, which means that by naming this team sport the Redskins, they're kind of downgrading Native Americans to this lower level and putting themselves above them, making Native Americans feel offended for having that name and not really honoring them as the team Redskins believes to. And so if Native Americans believe that if these names are taken away from team sports, then all these stereotypes are going to reduce greatly, as well as their portrayal is going to come up here in level and equal with all other ethnic groups, not simply be lower than any other ethnic group. So if we come together and try to change these names, it will stop all these stereotypes from offending Native Americans, as well as make Native Americans feel as if their rights are being heard and that they are being listened to. And it will just greatly change all these views of how this ethnic group is seen.